Always have fun with some technical difficulties every once in a while, but we got to figure it out. So what I was saying when you couldn't hear me is Mondays, when they're a holiday, always have me kind of messed up. My week's always a little bit off. Half the time I don't know what day it is anyway, because all my days run together. Always busy, work today. It's not like, did enjoy a little bit of the holiday just because nobody else was working. But for the most part, still got a lot of things done. It was kind of nice, actually, to have some quiet time, be able to think through things and get things that were on the back burner knocked out. So, but on to the fun stuff that you guys are here for. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but according to unvalidated sources, Ripple is potentially acquiring Circle. Now, I've heard Brad speak about this on stage once before. I believe it was XRP Vegas, not this year, but last year. There was some rumors swirling at one point that they had offered $5 billion to acquire Circle. And at that point in time, Brad came out and said, he didn't say that they hadn't offered to acquire Circle. He just said that they didn't offer $5 billion, or maybe it was $20 billion at the time. I think it was $20 billion that somebody said, and later came out that it may have been $5 billion that they had offered. Now we have rumors circling that there's a potential acquisition for $6 billion. Thank you, babe. I see the super chat here. So we'll see if that's legit or not. I'm sure that we will find out here at some point this week. If it is, I'm sure that similar to that situation, if it was an offer and it was accepted, we will see that it did actually happen. Or if it wasn't accepted and maybe it wasn't as legitimate as it was proposed or put out there to be, maybe Brad will come out and speak on it. The reason that I won't say informed, the hearsay on the street last time this kind of swirled was that at the time, the regulators felt like that would violate antitrust laws. But now that we have other stablecoin issuers in the market, large stablecoin issuers going to move into the market here in a big way in the near term, maybe they went ahead and let this go through. Maybe now that we have PayPal and Paxos and Fidelity and Benji Token and all of these other tokens and stablecoins out here, the regulators felt it was okay, that it was no longer monopoly, didn't violate antitrust laws, and they are going to let that go through. So we'll have to see what comes out for the rest of the week here, but I think we will get an answer one way or the other from Ripple. Anytime this stuff swirls like that, and it isn't legit, they will at least comment on it. But if it is legit, maybe we'll see an announcement, which would also do really well for Ripple stock. I would assume that if they did make that acquisition for either, $6 billion or $11 billion, whatever the number actually ends up being, that would be a huge, huge piece of their business and revenue that they would then be generating. Circle does very well. Obviously, they're a public company. Here's the other piece of this that I actually just had the epiphany on right now. This would be a reverse merger. So Ripple would go public by acquiring Circle. Now, that's an interesting outcome because there have been a couple conversations over time where, and Ripple themselves have said this publicly multiple times, that they wouldn't have an IPO or an initial public offering, even though they've been audited by the SEC and run through the ringer and would likely do very well going public in that manner. They've become kind of a household name. The other thing that you get in an RTO is you get to name the price of your shares when you go public. This would be very interesting. And this would be a really unique way for them to get into the public market without having to dilute their shares or holdings in order to be able to, pass it around to investment banks and do the whole IPO roadshow and everything that goes along with that. So I'm kind of leaning toward this is probably real now that I'm thinking through it here. And again, this is just real time candid with you guys. This provides them a lot of leverage that they otherwise wouldn't have. And with Circle already being public and their share price being down since the open, this would boost their stock also. It's some additional leverage in that negotiation for Ripple on the price for the acquisition. Now, they could take Circle private, would be the other way that they could go with this. So if Ripple does not want to go public, which I don't think they've ever stated that. I think they've just stated that they would not have a traditional IPO. And I've thought for a long time maybe they would do it through a direct listing, because Ripple's already kind of a household name, at least in the crypto space. Most people that are into crypto know what Ripple is. They know what they do. They understand the business. And so therefore, kind of like Coinbase or some other people out there that have gone public, Gemini included, they would have, good standing in the market and wouldn't necessarily have to do a traditional IPO, even though Circle did an IPO and so did Gemini. Both, they diluted shares, passed it to investment bankers. Investment bankers got their clients to invest in it in order to be able to pump the stock at the open. Other thing about an IPO is the shares have a lockup period. Oftentimes somewhere between 6 months and a year before you can sell your shares if you were an early investor in the company. Direct listing is different. Those that invested in Coinbase when they went public, that was a direct listing at the top of the market. And those people were able to immediately sell their shares. They were liquid. With an RTO, I'd have to do some research because I'm not sure with a reverse merger like that onto the public stock exchange. And would they list? Yeah, surely they would list under Ripple's name, not Circle's. But with the acquisition of Rail and the ability to mint other stablecoins for other people, our ROUSD is over $1 billion. I think it's 1.3 billion in current distribution. What's the total market cap for USDC? We're gonna pull it up here. I should have had all this prepared for you guys, but I didn't. USDC market cap. Coin market cap shows 76.44 billion in total supply for USDC, which is about half the total supply. Tether is around 180, 190 billion. So actually less than half of the supply of Tether, but very dominant in the marketplace. And this would provide Ripple huge amounts of distribution. And between all the other integrations that Circle already has built out, this is a huge inroad into other enterprises, institutions, banks, and all the other clients that they would like to get in front of or might already be working with. So as I'm talking through it here, actually, I think this makes a lot of sense for Ripple. If they had the cash on their balance sheet to be able to do it, I think that this gets them a significantly higher valuation. What's the current market cap for Circle? Let's take a look here. Market cap for Circle. Currently at 28.12 billion for Circle. That's Circle Internet Group. Is that the name of their company? Is Circle Internet Group? Yeah, trading on that. Yeah, 28.12 billion. So I don't know how they'd be able to acquire them for 6 billion or 11 billion if their current total market cap is 28.12. Maybe maybe it's that much in cash and the rest is stock in Ripple. I don't know. So this person's asked, Jake, did Ripple buy Circle? I don't know. This is hearsay. This is a rumor that's out there. I'm just talking through why this would actually be a really good strategic move for them for distribution, price appreciation on their own stock, the ability to be publicly listed through an RTO, and their ability to negotiate that based on the leverage that they would have coming from that perspective. So, Ripple's currently worth 50 billion. That was their last tender offer, $300 per share, $50 billion valuation. So they could do it. They could make the acquisition. They would definitely dilute their shares, but it would also make sense for all the tender offers that they've done over the past 3 years, buying back their own shares in order to be able to negotiate this type of deal. So yeah, I am actually going to lend some credibility to this. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm in favor of them buying them. And I think that that actually makes a lot of sense. And this would be really good for people that hold Ripple stock, because you would be liquid. Again, I've got to look and see if there's a lockup period on an RTO, what the restrictions would be on the shares that people hold in Ripple. But I think this would be a big splash in the market if they went public this way. So I know that's the big news out there. I wanted to cover that first before we jump into the questions. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. Thank you to all the veterans, those that have served our country, those that are active duty military, and those that are past veterans. We appreciate you. The country would not be what it is without your service. And I wish that the benefits and the other things provided to veterans were easier to obtain and more readily available, and actually were a little bit grander in what was provided to our previous military and current military. But thank you guys so much. And you definitely deserve multiple days dedicated to y'all. So there's that. Trying to think if there's anything else we want to cover before we jump into the questions here. A couple posts out there on Twitter today alluding to something big happening tomorrow. We'll have to see if that actually ends up being the case. On the macro side, we did see a drop in the yen versus the USD. Well, actually, it's, the yen appreciated against the dollar back down to 158.9. We're at 159 a little bit earlier today, this morning. I think we're still trending there. Oil's down on the rumors that there has been a ceasefire. But, again, rumors swirling there. I don't know what's actually true and what's not. We'll find out over the coming days. The deal was signed where Iran retains ownership and, can continue to do whatever they want with the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if that's legit or not. Like I said, we'll see. Trump came out and said that's not the case, but there have been some things that have come out that are counterintuitive to that. And this person says, do my disclaimer. I will go ahead and do the disclaimer. I appreciate you reminding me. So everything here is for financial, everything here is for entertainment and educational purposes. I am not a financial advisor, a CPA, or attorney. You should always seek legal, financial, and tax advice from licensed professionals, not myself. I'm just a crazy guy on the internet that comes on here and gives my opinions. And my opinions are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or any of its subsidiaries. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the questions. I always forget to say it, but if you wouldn't mind, please like, subscribe, share. And I guess you can now hype stuff on YouTube. I don't know what that does, but if you guys would hype this, that'd be really cool. We're close to 200,000 followers over there on YouTube. And if we could get there, it's been one of the goals on my checklist for some time now. So if you guys could help me get there, it would be very much appreciated. All right, go ahead and jump into the questions. We got Colin. He says, hi, Jake. I've seen the piece by Dana Love saying XRP will never reach $10. I hope he's wrong, but he seems to make sense. Look, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about different things that are going on out there. I don't come on here and hype things or, try to talk it up in a way that doesn't make sense. I try to provide, legitimate backing for my thesis that I've put out into the market on how it will obtain much higher prices than $10. I would assume that his thesis is predicated on market cap. Most people that don't believe that XRP can reach significantly higher prices, they tend to die on that hill. And again, like I've stated before, I haven't looked at this guy specifically or this lady. And so with that, I can't speak to specifically what they've said in their thesis, but I'm going to, go out on a limb and say it has to do with market cap. These are protocols. They are not companies. They are something very different than a stock. You don't value these based on EBITDA or earnings. And then also you're going to look at total diluted shares from market cap. All of those are available for trade at any time. Much of the XRP supply is escrowed. as well as many other people holding it on their balance sheet as a collateral asset, is what I believe it'll be used for over time. And so therefore, the majority of it's going to be kind of like restricted stock. It's not going to trade. And therefore, the amount that's actually trading on the open market would be substantially less than the available supply, the total supply, and circulating supply are three different things. And the available supply for XRP, I believe, is far less than 1 billion at this point, based on what's currently available on exchanges. And even if you include the dark pools and the OTC desks, I mean, Ripple only releases 300 million each month onto the market. They normally re-escrow about 700 million after they get 1 billion XRP each month on the first. So we're dwindling here down in the last week of May. This would be the time when there would be the least amount of supply on the open market. June 1st, they will get that distribution and then do what they normally do, I would expect. I'm assuming that a portion of that would be the cash that they're using to acquire Circle with. So it's likely that they will continue to sell XRP onto the market to continue to expand their business, make acquisitions, continue to grow things, and get distribution for XRP and their stuff. Who's that? Oh, I don't know. Well, my wife's giving me breaking news. Apparently, Nathan Almond just passed away, unfortunately, from Ondo. So very sorry to hear that. Condolences to him and his family. Not fun when anybody in this industry passes away that's made a big impact for people. So shout out to Nathan. God bless you. May God rest your soul, and we'll be praying for you and your family. So back to the thesis. Again, I assume that's predicated on market cap. I kind of gave you my reasoning as to why that doesn't apply to digital assets. But again, would enjoy debate if anybody wanted to bring that forward. I've gone back and forth with people many times on that very topic. I need to get to this super chat before we get into the rest of them. Otherwise, my wife is the tea lady will come get me. This person has asked. She made it really small. I got to squint to read this. I don't see the super chat. Oh, it's now I'm gonna have to log into my email because it's not printed on here. It's not on the bottom. Here it is.
Yeah, it's.
I
reprinted it because it was too tiny.
Oh, okay.
Oh God, I was on the thing.
Say thanks for the information. I watch you every week. My question was where to look for help for myself in the UK as a UK and US citizen, headed down to the UK to live near my family. I have 45,000 XRP and wanted to protect them myself from tax burden on both sides of the pond. Any recommendations? Much appreciated. Well, if you're a US and UK citizen, we were actually just in Bermuda. Bermuda would probably be a very good jurisdiction for you if you tend to travel back and forth between the two countries and have citizenship in both. The laws there actually kind of marry both US law and UK law. And it's a very tax-friendly jurisdiction. So that would probably be my recommendation for somebody that is a dual citizen between the UK and the US. When you're going to be taxed, by the US government, and I'm sure that there's a tax treaty with Bermuda. So, I mean, you're going to have to owe taxes here as a US citizen. But if you were to leverage insurance policies or other things there in Bermuda, you should be able to structure that in a way where you're able to mitigate or reduce the taxes as much as you can. 45,000 XRP. I mean, yeah, you're in the range where you would probably want to start structuring something. Again, I'm not the end all be all. I would encourage you to go talk to a tax attorney, maybe somebody there in Bermuda. Their legal process for setting up an entity is much more grandiose than what we have here in the US. We looked at doing some different things for insurance there, and it's about 20 pages between the filing and all the things that you have to submit in order to be able to get an organization structured there in Bermuda. So I would do that sooner than later. UK, if you're going to reside there, it can't be more than 183 days per year that you can spend in the country. It may even be less than that. I know Eleanor Terrett has a deal do with that. She got her citizenship last year here in the U.S., and she is also a dual citizen between the U.K. and U.S. So you might actually ask Eleanor. I don't know if she wants to divulge, where she has her stuff structured or if she's has any ideas on that, but she would be in the same boat as you and might be able to shed some light on one path or another that she thinks is viable for herself. And I'm sure she also owns a decent amount of crypto. I've never actually asked her that. I saw her in Bermuda in passing. Didn't get to say hi. But yeah, being in the industry, surely she owns some crypto. Weird Kids TV. They say, love the vids, Jake. Are you still confident on the reverse carry trade? Lots of sources saying it's not going to happen. It would be just a slow unwind, such as Smoke on X and other peers, as the theory of America wouldn't let it be. Yeah, reverse carry trade is RCT. I guess we'll see. Everybody again has their opinion on stuff. I'm very confident in mine. I have been for multiple years. I'm really the only person that's been telling you guys step by step what would happen for the whole duration of time. Everybody else kind of picks up on things after they've already taken place. I'm not saying don't doubt me or question things. That's very fair. However, I've got a pretty good batting average at this point. And the reason that I even came up with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down before it was, and why I put that out, I kind of explained this in the mastermind earlier today. Do you think they would come this far just to come this far and turn back? Really? I don't. If everything else was in alignment with the outcome that we're looking to achieve and what I believe is going to be the end game, and it's orchestrated that way, do you think they would really just back off and not let it happen, or have the catalyst in order to be able to change everything over to this financial paradigm, to be able to save everything and make sure that we don't collapse from, the hyperinflationary debt and being backed into higher interest rates because of inflation in our economy? I don't think so. They're backed in a corner. They need an out. This is the out. And it's really kind of their only option at this point. And they need to deleverage that quickly in order to be able to de-risk from other countries want to de-risk from the dollar. There needs to be a transition. And the reverse carry trade is what's propped this thing up for a long time. Japan wants to be free of the US. They want to be able to operate independently and run their own economy and do what's best for their economy. Right now, they can't, because they can't raise interest rates, because this is going to unwind and cause global issues. So they need to, they need to raise interest rates because they have inflation in their economy, and they need to strengthen their currency against other currencies and do what's best for their people. Obviously, it's good for their stock market. If their currency is weaker, stocks would go up in value because they are an asset priced in yen. And if the yen is going down in value, stock prices would go higher. However, it will be a short-lived, I think people would rather rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with rather than like a slow bleed like the GFC was. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but the GFC was rough. It was for years, had problems. And then you've also got, Japan had lost decades because of stagflation. You also had the Great Depression, which was kind of a lost decade here in the US. That's what we're looking forward to if they don't do it this way. So there's a lot of people out there that can say, it's going to happen differently or this or that. I have very strong reasons for the reasons why I believe this is going to play out the way that it needs to, in order to be able to get this going in the direction that they need it to get going. And if it doesn't go that way and it's a slow bleed, just go ahead and prepare for another Great Depression. KW, I said, Jake wanted to know if there were any updates for the DAG clients from New York on the Uphold account. No bank account trading. I'm working on it. And I've been working on lots of stuff for a long time, and I appreciate the grace and patience that people have in me saying that. I diligently work on this stuff every single day, take actions toward it, look for different ways to be able to get stuff across the line. Until Uphold has regulatory approval with a bit license from the NYDFS, we're not going to have that. If XRP pops off and we can go apply for that, it's going to take us 6 to 12 months to get that license to be able to provide it. Unless we acquire a trust bank in New York that already has a bit license, which would be very expensive. XRP goes, okay, maybe we'll figure that out. But the fastest track would be through Uphold. I know that they are likely working on that to be able to operate in that jurisdiction. They already have many other money transmitter licenses and other licenses to be able to operate in the majority of jurisdictions. So I would expect, based on my conversations, that they are working on that. I don't know when that will happen. I don't think that that's an immediate priority for them, but they are working on it. I hope. So that's where it's at. Unfortunately, if you want to work with us at Anchorage, we would love to work with you. They do have their bit license. We can work with New York individuals and corporations through digital or DAG Wealth. So if you want to go to digitalwealthpartners.net and sign up over there, you need at least 50,000 XRP or at least $100,000 in your crypto portfolio, and they can absolutely execute trades. They can do all the stuff for you. So that's the best I have at this time, unfortunately. But as we bring more custodians on board and partnership with other people, I would expect that, there will be other avenues in which people in Canada and New York can both participate in the products and services that we offer. Scott, Mr. Maddox, he says, appreciate you, Jake. But this shout out to the mods. Appreciate what all y'all do for the community. God bless. I gave a big shout out to the mods earlier today on the town hall that we have every single Monday for the digital asset discussion. To your point, the community wouldn't be what it is without the moderators over there in the Beyond Broke Mastermind. I'm very grateful, very thankful for them. They spend a ton of time, and they are actively working on other things to generate additional value there in the group. I was doing some stuff to be able to send over to them earlier today. So shout out to Living Legacy, Until Valhalla, and Misfits, and Million Drops, and all of the other people over there, Future. There's many more that I'm missing here, but the community wouldn't be what it is without you guys. So thank y'all. If you wanted to see what the community's about, we would love to have you in there on the other side of a $10 XRP. We're going to lock it down. So I don't know that you have a whole lot longer to be able to participate in the community, but if it's something you want to try out, if you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2 at beyondbroke.com. We do use the Discord server, but we are adding more and more things to the website, so people will have access to stuff there, and we'll continue to do that over time. And on the other side of price appreciation, we are locking it down. It will be invite only and a very exclusive community. Be much more expensive if you're invited as well. Good to see you. They say legend. BG123 finished his things on 5/24 with the same phrase Trump uses, no more Mr. Nice Guy, and nothing. You said that 6/1 could be considered New Year's Day, and that 6/1 will be flying first class. Tinfoil hat. Why is 6/1 so special? So 6/1 is the day before XRP's birthday on 6/2. So XRP and the XRPL will be 14 years old on June 2nd this year. So, if you wanted to consider, maybe Ripple and the Riddlers and everybody considers New Year's Day June 2nd, and New Year's Eve would be 6/1. That would also make today Christmas on that calendar. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, a lot of tinfoil hat stuff going on out there. I will say that there were some tweets today that were very interesting. Lord Belgrave put out one that was picked up by Pompous. over there on Twitter. Shout out to him for acknowledging me in the yen carry trade and oil and things that were illustrated in that photo. And then also we had the XRP Ledger Foundation put out a tweet that looked a lot like the BG123 snowballs on the banner, and saying that tomorrow is going to be a good day. So again, people also talk about things going 360 full circle, 5 times 8 times 9 is 360. So if Ripple is acquiring Circle, I don't know, man. Surely there's some stuff there that you can connect. Again, I take it all with a grain of salt. It's always very entertaining to look at all that stuff. But you can go down the rabbit hole and get sucked in, and it's hard to get back out of there. So with as much as we have to execute on every single day, candidly, I don't have the time any longer to do that. When I was doing the M&A and first got into crypto, I spent a decent amount of time looking at all that stuff. So, and portions of it are how I put together my theory. Again, kind of like icing on the cake. It's not everything that it's based off of, but the yen, the 10-year treasury in Japan, Bitcoin, Tether, many of those things were illustrated by these anonymous accounts over the years. Can you call that valid? Could it be, putting that out into the ether so maybe other people could figure it out? Maybe. But all that being said, that's my tinfoil hat for you guys for today. We'll see what this week holds, but I think it could be a really good one. I would be happy to see Ripple make that acquisition. I would also be very happy to see. It seems like things are escalating over there with Israel attacking Iran and the U.S. getting involved. I wouldn't be surprised to see oil jump a little bit tomorrow. Disco Yoda, they say, Jake, my Mando, what's up, dude? Could you describe how you handled your first or second larger price appreciation event? Love to hear about highs and lows or pitfalls that we can learn from your experiences. So I've talked about the Chainlink deal before. When I invested in 20 and 21, I was investing somewhere between 5 and 25 grand in each one of the positions that I took. I took 13 positions. It's wild to watch, like, go to dinner and be up for the day and you're excited and you go to dinner and then you're worth twice as much as what you were before dinner as after dinner. It's a surreal experience. It's hard to even describe. You feel very giddy and euphoric and like it can't stop, but it can. It definitely can. And that's where the pitfall is, right? The best piece of advice I would give people, if you're in a speculative market, not necessarily a utility-driven market, but a speculative market, people dollar cost average in, like they get that, right? But people don't dollar cost average out. And they also don't have a plan for that money. I didn't. I sold and was like, oh no, now I have taxes. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to offset those? Oh no, it was in my personal name. Like, you don't have those epiphanies until there's a problem. So structuring yourself from the beginning, making sure that your assets are held the right way, either in trust or in an LLC or in at least some way to be able to protect them and mitigate taxes, is an absolute necessity if you believe you're going to have millions of dollars or a liquidity event that's that large. Lows, there was multiple that I wrote up and I was like, oh, well, I'll sell a little bit when it gets a little bit higher, stupid. Should have taken profits sooner, should have scaled out again the same way that I scaled in instead of trying to eke out every last penny. Anytime I've ever been greedy, excuse my French, but it's bit me in the ass. The world giveth and the world taketh away. It's you just want to make sure that you're protecting yourself, mitigating downside risk if you can, taking chips off the table. For some people, that's just their initial investment. They take that out once they see a 4 or 5x on something, and then let the rest ride on the house. And then you're at least principal protected at that point. If you are going to take additional profit beyond that, I would have a plan for it. One way to be able to mitigate the taxes and also structure it in a way where you're buying another asset with it. Don't sell it to buy a Lamborghini. I don't think most people watching this are going to be doing those things. Most people aren't egotistical or gluttonous and I'm not saying don't do things that you've waited on, right? Like enjoy the fruits of your labor, but at the same time, try to structure that in a way where it's in a tax advantaged way, or you're being smart about it. Or if you have to defer that gratification just a little bit longer in order to be able to do it the right way, I think that that's probably a better choice. And that's hard to do. It takes discipline to do that. So imagine, you sell some crypto, it's XRP or whatever it is when we see price appreciation. And let's say you clip a couple $1 million, and you need that $1 million or a couple $1 million to buy the home that you want, as an example. Maybe you finance the home. Okay. So, don't necessarily want to keep the wife waiting if that's what she's been waiting on. Find the home. Maybe it's, $3 million home. You got to put 600,000 down. The other 1.4, you would probably want to put in some type of multifamily property or real estate or something to be able to offset the tax implications that you just had through a cost seg analysis on the property. Or you could put it in an opportunity zone. Opportunity zones get 100% right off the first year. You got to hold them for 5 years. And then you can, roll out of them at the end and use a 1031 to be able to continue to defer the taxes. So, work with professionals, find professionals to be able to help you navigate that. But understand like what you're going to do with the profits you're taking, have a plan beforehand, and have multiple plans. Okay. There's a lot of people that have just one expected outcome, like the Dana person that says it can't get to $10. They're going to sell it $8. Okay. If the chart gaps to $100, that person's not going to have a plan for that amount of money. So have a couple different plans, have contingencies depending on the different outcomes that are going to take place. I'm confident in the outcome that I believe is going to take place, and that's what I've planned for. But that doesn't mean I don't have plans for lesser price appreciation if that's the way that it goes. So I would just work with a certified financial advisor, somebody that has their 65 or their CFA or their CFP, somebody that can help you actually think through the tax implications, how to structure it properly, navigate that, look at life insurance or other tools and products to be able to mitigate taxes and get structured the right way. What can you do now to be proactive versus what can you do post price appreciation? You're going to be a philanthropist one way or the other. It's either going to be willing or unwilling. If you want to pay it to Uncle Sam, he's going to dole it out the way that he thinks is best. Or you can make donations to, a private foundation that you set up, or a donor advised fund, or a charitable remainder trust. There's a lot of different ways that you can structure that on the philanthropic side. So, we do all of that. Again, not saying you have to work with us. I'm sure that we will be very overwhelmed when things move here, and if they move in a short period of time. We've done good to, staff up and build systems that are scalable, but there will still be frictions. It will take us time to get through everybody if there's, a rush toward the door. But we will absolutely do our best to navigate that if that's the outcome that takes place. So we're here for you if you want to use us, but there are other great professionals that are out there. We just try to aggregate them and make it very easy and streamlined to get access to the right people that do have the actual expertise to be able to help you. All right. Lots of people on the no sound thing. I'm glad we got that fixed. KT baby, Rick Johnson. Oh, he's going to clap back. He says, hopped into Doctor Who's TARDIS and traveled back in time 80 million years and got eaten by a pterodactyl. No, wait. It was a bald donut spare that she marked KT babies got eaten. Rick has a wild imagination. He comes up with some pretty unique stuff on here. appreciate the super chat, man. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, rest in peace, Ondo CEO. Very tragic to hear that. Again, prayers go out to his family, having to deal with that on Memorial Day. We have CK13. They say, thank you for teaching wealth accumulation and preservation. An Onan member facing terminal cancer, but use my trust and Onan governance structure as a template for his Ohan. I'm not sure what an Ohan is. UR guidance gave him peace in his final days. That's the real value. You know, thank you for the super chat and kind of bringing that to people's attention. I'll share a story with you guys. So before my dad passed away, he knew he was going to die. And he put on a good face for the people that were around him. But I had talked to him 5 weeks before he passed away, before he ever got sick with COVID. And long story short, you know, he told me he was tired and that he had really kind of done everything he wanted to in life and that he had really kind of lost the will to live. And he had he had a will that he had put me in as the executor when he had split with my mom when we were younger. And I was young at the time. I was probably 20. Well, I was probably 18 or 19 when they split up and I moved in with him. And, you know, he made me the executor on there. I have a sibling. And so I'm the older one. And anyway, it got down to be his final days. And I remember calling him and talking to him because I didn't go to the hospital to see him. They wouldn't let me in because it was COVID anyway. But I really didn't want to see him in that kind of shape. I wanted to remember him how he was, you know, when he was healthy and smiling and playing with my son. And so, you know, I called him and just check on him and talk to him and kind of get the stuff off my chest I needed to, and let him do the same. And he was concerned. He gave me, you know, the password to his phone, and he told me where to find stuff so that I could take care of everything for him. And I think that gave him some solace, but I know that that was weighing on him, you know, as he was lying there passing away. So yeah, if you have this stuff set up, you've had conversations with your family, they know where things are, you've got it structured the right way to make sure that there's not going to be infighting or problems with the family. It's just a peace of mind, like you just said there, for people. And what's the cost of that, right? Like, it's hard to put a price on those things. I think he thought he had things structured the right way, but he never gifted anything into the trust or moved any accounts into the trust name. He had tried to set it up online with Novo Trust, and he even went and had an attorney, you know, draft some stuff and notarize things, but he never moved any of the accounts. He didn't know what to do or how to do it. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so adamant about working with people to get things done the right way, because luckily, you know, my brother and I were pretty amicable, and my stepmom, which he never married, you know, we were all fine. Nobody was at each other's throats, but it could have been. It's not like it was a small amount of money. She ended up with most of it, and rightly so. She had to put up with him. My dad was not the easiest person to get along with. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. And I would just second it. If you never know when your time is. And that's, you know, the wonderful and horrible thing about life. Death is an inevitability. Nobody likes to talk about it. It's not fun. But if you're responsible for other people, you have an obligation to make sure things are good for them, right? Especially as the man in your family or lady, either way. If you feel that obligation and you want to make sure that they're taken care of and it's done, then you should probably take the time to do that stuff. And again, it's tedious, it's boring, that you have like it's not fun stuff to do, but just as a responsible adult that is a caretaker of other people, I think that is part of your obligation. So anyway, thank you for sharing in the super chat, and hopefully, you know, you guys got some value from that. I try to share my life lessons and things that I've experienced that I think will help people navigate whatever they're going through or will go through. Elisa, or Ellis, not sure which one it is. I'm butchering it either way. Sorry. He says, brother man. So I'm assuming this is a dude. All right. Sorry. Sorry, man. He says, appreciate all that you do and knowledge that you share, but why are you the only person who sees past $20? Not the only one. I'm just the only one that hasn't been beat down by so many people that, you know, there's been almost all of the other content creators. I don't really consider myself that. I consider myself more of a businessman that does this to be able to help people. And maybe that's the difference too. I'm also not bought and paid for. We don't have any sponsors on this channel besides Decent. You know, they're the cold wallet solution that we advocate for. And if you use the link, we get like $5 if you use it. But you know, I sponsor the channel. Digital Ascension Group and the Mastermind and everything else that we do is what pays for this. And I take time out of my day because I enjoy doing it. I get a lot of fulfillment from coming on here and answering questions and sharing my thoughts, my real thoughts, unfiltered. You know, have to be careful with compliance and stuff and be thoughtful about that according to my attorneys and give my disclaimers. But for the most part, I'm pretty candid with you guys. So I think that's the difference. I don't answer to anybody but myself. And so for that reason, I can give you guys the real deal. And a lot of other people like to point to my content about the high prices because they don't want to say it themselves, which I don't know why. Like there's very sound reasoning as to why this will take place. And I've given everybody the roadmap on the order in which would have to happen and for that outcome to transpire. So I don't know. I think if I had to, you know, point to something, that's probably it. But you know, I don't think anybody else is going to say. Again, I think a lot of people are just kind of beat down. They've said high prices before and then not been able to justify those or explain it in a way where it was understandable by the majority, and therefore, you know, over time they just get to the point where they're conservative on things. Love for Life says, when we have rapid price appreciation, does DAG have a plan action plan mapped out? You will undoubtedly be swamped with emails and phone calls. We do. We have really taken the period since New Year's to be able to build out the infrastructure to be able to support substantial inbound. We had really substantial inbound toward the end of last year, and our team's very experienced with that. And they also saw where the holes were, where the ball got dropped, and how we can do better. And so over the last 5 months, 6 months almost, you know, we've really taken the time to fortify those systems, bring on people, train them the right way in order to be able to scale up and meet that demand when it comes. I think we could probably onboard a couple thousand people a day on the wealth management side. We could do the same thing on the LLC creation and regular trust creation, the revocable living trust creation. The complex, you know, irrevocable, the DAPT, Digital Asset Protection Trust, that's, you know, married with the Dynasty Trust and Trigger Trust. That's a little bit more time consuming. We've built out AI models in order to be able to build the family constitution and those documents in order to be able to help our estate planners navigate what's right, the right structures to put in place for each person as they come along. They are also using AI heavily to be able to draft those documents appropriately. We've done a lot of legal work in the back end with attorneys that we know in order to be able to get this done and streamline it as much as we can, because we do believe there's going to be significant inbound on that side. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the main pieces that people are going to have to start with, we've streamlined those to a point where we could intake, you know, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 3,000 people a day when that move happens. Our goal and the company knows this. We've had multiple conversations that we want to be able to serve somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people globally over the next couple of years. And I think we'll need to. If we execute on the rest of the stuff that we're supposed to be doing, then we should be the avenue that's legal and compliant and has all the disclosures and helps you navigate and mitigate risk around participating in different products here domestic in the US and abroad, depending on which jurisdiction you're in. So we've done a lot of work on the legal side and the compliance side to make sure that we can handle things at scale. Went through our SEC audit, went through the fund audit for the first year. Good on that stuff. So I think that we've really worked hard over the last 5 months to make sure that we're in a position to be able to handle that situation when it does inevitably play out. And we're excited. We're excited to work with you guys. We've got Bly the Beasley. They said, Jake, thank you for all that you do for us in this space. My question is I'm a DWP customer and I've already set up an Old Glory account. What is the timeline for the yield product? The yield product is a 4-letter word at DAG at this point. I'm hesitant to even give a timeline at this point, and I'm not saying that to sidestep the question. The infrastructure that exists for wealth management and crypto is nascent in comparison to what's in TradFi. So I'll give you the example. And the main reason that it's been difficult for us to be able to get this product to market, to be able to run separately managed accounts or SMAs, where we're able to provide this to all of our clients instead of just accredited clients, is cumbersome. It doesn't exist. Then that's why the majority of people have run fund structures, and that's why we started there for being able to generate returns on XRP. There are a couple players in the market that we're talking to, prime brokers and others that have solutions. But when you're margining an asset, there's a hurdle rate and there's also volatility risk. So in order to be able to hold those assets inside institutional custody with Anchorage or another counterparty that we're comfortable with to make sure that your assets are secure and not rehypothecated, there's some hoops that we have to jump through on compliance and legal and infrastructure. We've got to do it with credible parties that we underwrite the risk on and understand how they're using that margin and in what products. It's not like it's just a flip of the switch and cool, off you go type thing, especially for how we're structured. We are beholden to the SEC. We have very high standards for compliance and due diligence and risk that we have to adhere to. But I think that's also part of the reason that people want to work with us, right? They know that we are beholden to that counterparty and others, FINRA included, and we have to be doing these things and the risks have to be disclosed to our clients. And I think that gives people a little bit more of a warm and fuzzy rather than just throwing their stuff in a DeFi protocol and calling it good. We had another exploit today on Arbitrum, Ethereum, and one other network. $4 million in vaults were drained and then replaced with a synthetic, token that was not worth anything. So just stuff like that, right? There's always going to be risk in smart contracts and other things. We need to make sure that stuff's insured, segregated, bankruptcy remote. Ideally, it's held with a QC. And we have multi-sig and other things on the wallet. So, and again, not saying this to sidestep the question. We are working, everybody at the company at DAG knows that this is our #1 priority to get a yield product across the line. And it is all that they are working on, I can assure you, myself included. So if it were that easy, other people would be doing it here in the US. There is nobody else that has this here in the US. There are a few people offshore that are in other jurisdictions that aren't quite as stringent, that allow, for you to partake in certain yield generating structures, which would be considered securities offerings here in the US. And that's why they've geofenced the US, because they don't want US participants participating in their offering, because it opens them up to litigation with the SEC for soliciting, U.S. investors without proper disclosure and structure. So that's where it's at. Believe me, my team is very aware that this is the #1 priority that we're working on. We've got Rick Johnson again, Mr. Johnson. He says, Roydman, I have a joke for you. Job interviewer, what's your biggest weakness? Applicant, my honesty. Job interviewer says, to me, honesty is not a weakness. Applicant says, I don't care what you think. That sounds like my business partner, Max. Oh, Max Avery. He'll shoot you straight. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, which I appreciate. Kingdom Within Me. I love the name again. I always got to say that. They say, hi, name of Canadian insurance specialist. Well, funny you should say that. I've got one on my, I've got one on my calendar here. What type of insurance is going to matter for the context on this? But let me find that meeting. Mahad Mohammed. He is with, where'd he go? Taxpartners.ca is who I would recommend. So he does deal with life insurance and structuring insurance products for Canadians. So Mahad, M-A-H-A-D. I don't know if he wants me to give out his email on here, but you can imagine what it is. I gave you the website. It's taxpartners.ca. If you want to just go to that website and fill out the forms and whatever they need, I'm sure that they would love to have a conversation with you and help you out. He does taxes up there. He does accounting. He also helps with jurisdictional transfer. So if you're moving from Canada or another jurisdiction to Dubai, he can help structure those things as well. Does insurance there in Bermuda and many other things. So that was actually a really good conversation that I had with him earlier this week. Shout out to Canadian Crypto for having me on their podcast. I met them at Futurist last year, and he's had me on Twitter Spaces a few times, and I was on there with them. They sponsor their Canadian podcast. Circle, they're a bunch of jerks. They're not, though. I've talked to Circle. They're good people. I remember when they pivoted from their previous model where they were paying out yield on Bitcoin to just mutual funds and boring business. And obviously that was the right play with the regulatory environment that we had over the last 4 years before Trump and the new administration. They were able to gain significant market share, and now they could be being acquired by Ripple. Javelin Blue says, Jake, getting pretty desperate. Just want to know XRP is going to take off. Thanks, brother. Like I've said many times, it's the macro catalysts that are going to push it to where it needs to be. Until those things play out, we're not going to see the price appreciation that a lot of people are hoping for. But I do believe that the perfect storm is right off the horizon as things are progressing here in the Middle East and escalating. You've got Japan accepting stable coins as currency for international remittance and transfer as of June 1st. So if that's any indicator on when things are going to move, I don't know. But we'll have to see how the next 7 days play out. Big Joe, he says, good afternoon to you and the tea lady, Carbon One member here. In your opinion, thank you for being part of the mastermind, by the way, and thank you for the super chat. They say, in your opinion, what is the bare minimum of XRP you need to become a millionaire? First round of price appreciation. God bless you and the team. On the conservative side, I think we could see something around 50 to 100 bucks first. So we'll go on the lower end of that. So that would be 2,000 XRP at 50 bucks a piece. Is that right? Or 20,000 XRP? Yeah, I think it's 20,000 XRP. Well, handy dandy calculator always misses zero, and then people give me they talk mess after I can't do math real time here. So let's call 2,000 times 50. Yeah, you need 20,000. 20,000 XRP would give you $1 million at $50 each. I think it's going to go higher than that. I think it's going to gap closer to 100 off the rip. And then not too long after that, likely going to move to 4 digits to be able to facilitate back-end settlement of the stock market. So that's my thesis. I could be wrong. I'm just one guy. These are my opinions. You know, don't base your whole financial future on anything I'm saying here. It's for entertainment and educational purposes. But I know people have that question, right? So if you're asking me, you know, point blank, that's the answer I'd give you. 20,000, I think, is a safe number to say that, you know, at $50 or higher, you would be a millionaire. And I just want to say this also. Being a millionaire doesn't get you much these days. Back in the 90s, like that was a big deal. But today, you know, with the cost of everything, you really can't even retire on $1 million. You need somewhere between $5 and $10 million to actually be able to retire and live off the interest on it at a conservative interest rate and not eating into the principal significantly over time. So, you know, you're probably shooting for more like $5 million bucks. And for that, you would need 100,000 XRP at $50 a piece would give you $5 million. Is that right? Yeah, $5 would be 500,000. So add a zero, be 5 mil. Yeah. That's enough for like quote unquote FU money, right? Before that, yeah, you're probably still going to have to work. You're going to have to do other stuff. Although you could supplement your income pretty nicely with, you know, $1 million working for you in XRP. Big Joe again. He says, "Good afternoon to you and the tea lady." Oh, we already did that one. Snowzar, butchering it. He says, "Jake, Grok says that $12 XRP in 2030 is more reasonable." Well, yeah, it's more reasonable. The fastest way to being broke is being reasonable or realistic. He says, "Is more reasonable than $100 because of rippling and netting. If you owe me $10 and I owe you 9, only moves 1, not 19. So 20 to 30 billion daily, not 5 trillion thoughts." Yeah, I mean, rippling and netting definitely help on the network. You still need enough liquidity to move that value, though. So again, I've talked about the LLMs before. I think it's great that people are starting to adopt those and search things and use that as a search engine. I still don't think most people have really unlocked what is really doable with the AI today, like creating agents that could go work on your behalf and creating skills that they have to review things through and governance around when they have to bring things, you know, to you for approval versus just being able to automate it and execute it themselves. That's the unlock. And that increases productivity because they'll do all that while you're sleeping, you're sick, you're on vacation, whatever else. But, you know, just asking an LLM something, they're also probabilistic and not deterministic. So what that means is depending on how you answer or how you ask the question, it's going to answer a certain way. I don't remember, we were sitting on the couch last night and I asked the LLM something and my wife said, "Well, it answered that way because you asked it that way." And she's not wrong. Like, depending on how you ask the question, is kind of how it answers it for you. So you have to give it a lot of context the LLM doesn't have. If you don't build in a skill that is, you know, it reviews everything through every single time before it gives you an answer, you're going to get slop. It's not going to give you, you know, actual answers on stuff. As an example, so the AMMs are going to be fixed tomorrow. There's a couple fixes that are going to get pushed on the XRPL. I think late in the day tomorrow. Well, actually, it was 36 hours about noon today. So it's going to be to Wednesday. Wednesday is when version 3.13 will get pushed for the AMMs. I was asking the LLM if, you know, XRP could facilitate back-end settlement of the stock market, you know, solely on the AMMs. And it said no. That's for routing payments and providing liquidity and settlement. It's not for reconciling the back-end trades on the stock market. But I said, okay, well, what if you paired that with Project Ion? And it did research and it looked at Corda and R3 and what they developed with the DTCC for Project Ion, gave me some statistics on it. And it said, actually, if you paired the AMMs with with Project Ion, you could facilitate back-end settlement of the stock market at scale for the number of transactions and liquidity required if XRP was somewhere between $500 and $1,000. And again, that was predicated on like 1 billion to 5 billion XRP being used for that settlement, and reducing the amount of times that XRP is used per day to less than 10. So, again, those are all constraints that you have to give the LLM. You have to feed it. Otherwise, it's going to give you answers outside of the scope of what you're looking for. So unless you have all that context, it's not just going to go out and find it. You have to be very specific when you ask ChatGPT or Grok or Claude, any of these things. And again, if you don't have a skill that it's run through for the context to be able to answer it the right way, it's going to give you just arbitrarily whatever it finds on the internet. And if you're also not providing it with your educated guesses and criteria, then again, it's not going to be very accurate. So that would be my, value I could provide on that, is make sure that you are, really giving it specific questions. And this is something else I was actually talking about with, we run some family office events, and the gentleman that we coordinate those with, we were talking about it earlier on. And, he asked me, we were having a higher level conversation. He said, do you have these high level conversations frequently? And I said, occasionally I do. But most of the time I'm, kind of simplifying things or making things analogous so that people can understand them. And I'm in that conversation, I was thinking through like 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th orders of actions beyond whatever was currently going on. Most people are looking at just the first thing that's right in front of them right now, and maybe, a day or two or a week later based on what's going to happen with that. And with that, they don't have the context to even ask really informed, good questions. And that's really what it takes to get the LLMs to give you good information, is very specific questions, just like you would ask for when you come on here if you want, a certain answer. Duran Taylor, they say, question, ROUSD is backed by dollars. It's not backed by dollars, it's backed by treasuries or cash equivalents. So that means banks still need to keep the money moving in Nostro Vostro accounts. So if that means XRP is still needed for settlement, since ROUSD accounts for volatility. Yes, you have that exactly correct. If you don't have to pre-fund accounts and you have a DEX that you can settle through, where the counterparty receives what they want on the other side of the transaction without having to pre-fund stable coins or other currencies, that would be the ideal outcome. And that would unlock all of that capital instead of just exacerbating Nostro Vostro accounts and pushing that to 50 trillion globally because of all the stable coins having to be held with the different counterparties to settle with them. So yeah, it's right on point. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to work my way back up on the super chats again. If you're here, I always forget to say it. Please like, subscribe, share, hype. I guess you can do the hype thing over here on YouTube now. If you guys wouldn't mind hyping this and putting some points toward that, it would be very much appreciated. It does help the algorithm. And again, trying to get to 200,000 followers over there on YouTube. If you guys could help me get there, I'd be very, very grateful. Thank you so much for subscribing and participating on here on a regular basis. Again, I got a lot of fulfillment from coming on here and answering questions and helping people out. Hopefully, it's mutually beneficial for you guys. Max Electricity says, Max here. Hey, Jake, Mastermind Social. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you in the group. He says, DWP question, Soil XRP for yield. Bless you in the T-Lake. Thank you. I've looked at Soil. So they are doing private credit and lending that out. I don't know what they're lending against. I need to better understand the types of loans that they're making and how they're underwriting that risk. But they look to be structuring this in a way where it's going to work with liquidity pools on the XRPL. So currently that amendment only has like 9 or 10 votes. It hasn't been passed yet. But when the liquidity pools are live on the XRPL, there will be a broker that sits in those pools, and they will underwrite the risk on whatever the investments are going to be made or how the borrow and lending is going to work out of those pools. And there'll be an arbiter also in case there's a dispute between people, so that there's legal there to be able to handle that. And they have oversight and can review all the transactions very quickly to see who's at fault or who signed what and didn't have, fulfill on their side. But yeah, again, soil would be available for international people that are not domestic here to the U.S. The way that it is structured, you are contributing assets to somebody else in a pooled vehicle, and they are then putting those assets to work in some capacity to be able to generate returns and pass those back to you. That would meet all the prongs of the Howey test and be, in my mind, a securities offering. So until we have DeFi regulation here in the US, we're just going to consider those pools and things as securities offerings. And that's why a lot of those, again, like I mentioned before, have geofenced the US because they know that that could be considered that way. And they are trying to navigate that situation and not have problems with the SEC or the US authorities. So if you're international, yeah, cool. Check it out. Again, that's one of them that I haven't sat down with to actually have a full conversation and kind of look at how they're doing it and what they're investing in or how they're underwriting the risk on the loans that they're making. So for me, I would need to do a lot more due diligence before I felt comfortable advocating for soil, but not to say that they're good or bad. I'm indifferent at this point because I'm ignorant. I don't know. So that's where we're at with it. Would love to talk to them. If you guys want to put them in contact with us, our CIO, Lewis, would be heading that up. I actually sent it over to him earlier today because I got an email about it, which may have come from you, about that topic. So I'm sure that it's on his list of things. He's, again, working on a yield product. So just so you guys know, none of this is yield. I want to make that very clear. All of these are returns on XRP. There are no structured yield products. This is not like annuities or a mutual fund or something where there's a guarantee of returns. The majority of these DeFi protocols have a spread that they're going to pay you. And they're going to continue to be able to pay that over a period of time, depending on what they make. But that's kind of their guarantee to the people that are participating in the pool. And if there's additional upside, they're keeping the additional upside. Like, that's the business model. So they say, hey, we're going to pay you between this and this. And if there's additional upside, we get to keep that. And hopefully there is, right? Like, hopefully they crush it and they make a bunch of money. You get your standard rate or the high end of that rate, and then they make a bunch more than that. The way that we like to structure things at Digital Wealth Partners or DAG Wealth is you participate both ways with us. So if there's substantial upside, you also get that. I know that people want something consistent to be able to plan certain distributions and outcomes on. So the way that we will structure it will probably be a minimum. And I don't know that we'll cap the upper bound on stuff when we put together some type of product that, is an actual yield product. But that's going to take some time because there's not really, again, like a specific way to be able to do that with the asset, like staking. There are some people working on some things that are similar to Babylon with XRP as collateral, which would pay around 2% on your XRP that was staked with them, but they are going to be holding it. They could be rehypothecating it. They can do other things with it. So again, there's just a lot of risk and disclosures that need to be put in place for people participating in different things so that they understand how the assets are held, the assurances around that, insurance, is it segregated? Are you a creditor? All of those things. And again, like, everything that we built is very selfish for me because I want it done a very specific way. And I can tell you that the institutions that we're working with are finally coming around on that. They're seeing why I want things done a very specific way. And we're starting to get some help on that front, which is very nice to see. But the industry is still in its infancy when it comes to wealth management and financial products and engineering around these assets. I think that that'll come into vogue at a much greater pace later this year, in the second half of this year. After June, I think that things are going to wind pretty quickly, and we will be right there at the forefront of that with the products that we're able to offer. I did see a tweet from Evernorth today. I don't know if you guys saw that. But they mentioned, today was a slow day in the markets, but a big day for them. So I don't know if their S4 got approved today and they're going to be finalizing that SPAC this week. I tend to think that they're going to finalize that around the same time that XRP price appreciation happens. I could be wrong about that. But if you were close to Ripple and knew when things were going to play out and had that in your back pocket, you would probably position it where you were able to help with the demand for driving XRP's price higher. And Evernorth is a very interesting name. So maybe XRP will go Evernorth when Evernorth finalizes their SPAC. DK Goose 64 says, Jake, after price appreciation, are there other ways to mediate taxes and protect your investments without starting an LLC? I'm at an age that I'm not sure I want to go the LLC option. What age are you at where you don't want to go the LLC option? And again, so LLC is not right for everybody. There's a lot of different tools and things that you can use out there. LLC is the lowest hanging fruit. There's many reasons that you would structure that for creditor protection, anonymity, the ability to mitigate taxes, or at least have the breadth of the tax code to be able to offset your tax implications that you do have for selling or generating returns with the asset. Separately of that, though, one of the additional benefits is that you can gift small portions of equity to your family members. So let's say you had, I don't know, we'll call it 10,000 XRP. We'll say let's say 600,000 XRP. It goes to $50. You got $30 million. That's the total amount between you and your spouse that you could gift out of your taxable estate right now in 2026. If you had, let's say you had $1 million XRP and it went to $50. Now you got $50 million. That's above the gift tax threshold. But if it's in an LLC, you could gift small portions of equity to family members that you want to take care of and then get a 409A valuation done on that company. And it would actually compress the value of the company by 25 or 30%. So you could squeeze that down to somewhere around $30 to $35 million and be able to gift more of the assets out of your taxable estate into a trust. Now, you can also use an intentionally defective grantor trust and be able to cycle things in over time. We have avenues and ways to be able to do this post-price appreciation with trusts, insurance policies, foundations, and many other avenues to be able to structure it the right way. So again, that's really going to depend on your long-term goals. You pointed out your time horizon, your risk tolerance. There's a lot of factors that go into how you would structure things, and an LLC is not always, the number one solution. Just for 90% of people, that's probably where they're going to start. Andrew, Mr. Fuss, thank you for the super chat, for the $20. Appreciate you. Postmaster, he says, XRP family, gold and silver. I haven't talked about gold and silver here recently, but I will mention it just because it was brought up. I still see silver pulling back to $50. I still see gold pulling back down to $2,200, $2,100. I don't think it will stay there very long. I think that will happen when reverse carry trade unwinds. I think that it's going to be a straight line down and a V bottom out of there. But I see both of those levels as new support for both of those assets. And I do believe that the chart is going to come back at some point and touch those price levels. So can you pick it up when that's going on? I don't know. Should you sell now? I don't know. Depends on, again, a lot of factors, and you should speak with your financial advisor before making those decisions. I'm just telling you where I see the market going and when I would be looking to make an allocation. Wise Fit again says, hey Jake, Carbon One DWP member, awesome, glad to be working with you. Appreciate you being part of the mastermind. They say, thanks for all that you do. I'm 60 and old school and would love to sit down with my DWP advisor in person. Any ideas on when your office will be open in New York? At what point I will get a new advisor in New York to keep my current advisor? You can do either or. We're pretty amicable to people swapping around or moving to other advisors, depending on what's going to best serve them. The client comes first at DWP and DAG. So if you want somebody local there to New York, the office in New York should be open in mid-June. I think in the next 30 days, maybe a little bit sooner than that. We should have our office there in New York open and available for clients to come visit. And I'm sure if you email us, if you email your advisor and they know that that is what you would like, they will either connect you with somebody else there local or fly up there and meet you at the office when we do have it open. We just did that one for DK Goose. Always kicks me down or up in the chat, depends on which way I'm going. Right now I'm going back up in the chat from the bottom because we're already almost an hour and a half in. Willie Plank, they say, funny how Jake's biggest challenges aren't the questions and the macro things or all the crypto, but rather doing the mental game of this name or dude or female. Thank you. God bless you in the fam. You know, if that's my biggest fumble, I'll take it. Yeah, on the other stuff, I'm pretty solid. But, you know, to be honest, dude, geography's not my strongest subject. Spelling and reading and all of that, I'm decent now, and I'm fairly articulate and have a decent vocabulary. But for the majority of my life, that was not the case. I've worked on that pretty diligently over the past 5 years. And so, you know, there's still points where I'm trying to read something that I'll give you guys, if y'all want to really know, I'll share a inside joke between me and my wife. I don't know if she'll find this funny or not. She'll probably be like, you sound stupid, which I do on this one, just full candor. I don't remember, we were sitting in bed one night and I was reading a book. And you know how people say tomato, tomato? It was like spaced out and had asterisks in the word. And I was like, tumatu or putatu. Like, and it didn't even dawn on me that it said tomato, tomato type thing. So this is real time. It's live, right? It's not pre-recorded or anything. So yeah, I fumble with names. I'm also working on that. I'm not the best at remembering everybody's name. I remember your face for the rest of my life. If I ever see you out in public or at another event or anything, I will remember things about you and what you told me about your kids and like all the other things about you. Names, you know, I'm getting better at remembering. I'm trying to be better about saying your name back to you at least 3 times in a conversation. And if I do that, then I'll remember your name. But if I don't get it 3 times, it's not perfect. I will say that one of the things I noticed about Brad Garlinghouse is he is fantastic at that. And everybody says that. People that have met Brad one time 10 years ago will walk up to Brad and he will know their name immediately. So shout out to Brad Garlinghouse and his ability to remember everybody's name. It leaves an impact with people, and that's again why I'm working on it. Lulu, they say, from South Africa, thank you for your consistency. You're instilling hope in someone from a third world country. I appreciate it, Jake. By the way, what are your thoughts on Stronghold SHX? Thank you, man, for the super chat and from watching from a third world country. That's like incredible. We asked where people were from in the mastermind. I guess it was Saturday, and to see all of the international people that were on there at 9 a.m. Central Time was just wild. It's incredible to have people participating in that community from across the globe. So for you to be on here and doing the same, thank you so much for taking the time out. As far as SHX goes, or Stronghold, I think that they might end up getting acquired. Stripe looks as though that they're going to make their own token and have something that does settlement within their own infrastructure or a stable coin that they provide to be able to do that. I didn't have a great experience with Stronghold. I reached out to them when they first got started and tried to set up an account for payment processing, and they never got back to me. I called them, I emailed their sales team. I don't know if they just didn't have a sales team at the time, or they thought our account was too small and didn't want to work with us, or what. but I was actually really excited about it. I liked the idea. I thought it was novel. It's a niche that I think will blockchain is very applicable for. But after that experience, it kind of gave me some pause in their ability to actually gain market share and grow at the rate that I think a lot of people would like them to. And again, just as an example, I think Stripe currently processes like 3% of global payments for merchant services. WorldPay is who backs them. WorldPay is like the majority. So I would rather look at something like a WorldPay issuing a tokenized infrastructure and what token they were going to put out to market to invest in versus something like a Stronghold. Now, if they made an acquisition of Stronghold, yes, it's going to be the bee's knees. It's going to make a ton of money. But if it remains a third party or a competitor to them, I don't see that it's going to gain anywhere close to the market share that it possibly could and scale to. You just have to have distribution. And because I don't know if you've ever tried to change merchant processing or payment processing, it is a beating. And so for those reasons, I don't think they'll ever even get to 1% of the total payment processing for merchant services. Again, unless they get acquired. And if they get acquired by WorldPay, sky's the limit. I think we would do fantastic. We've got Revenue Playbook Chronicles. They say, Carbon 2, what's up, dude? Glad to see you. He says, legend. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for being on our podcast and Revenue Playbook Chronicles. It's crystal clear you are out to help a lot of people. Gene Little. If you guys don't follow Gene, go check him out. Check out his podcast. I really appreciate him being part of our community and having me on there. He's got a lot of other business owners that are coming on to share amazing information and gold nuggets for you guys. So if you want to learn about, how to be able to run a small business or scale a business or, just how to be a better person, I think that he's going to continue to have fantastic guests on over there. And I appreciate him for, having me on his podcast. So that's Revenue Playbook Chronicles is his podcast and YouTube channel. We got Fishmans. He says, can you comment on the theory that there's two XRP ledgers and that one of them XRP went up to $327,000? So there are private ledgers that are replicas of the XRPL that Ripple has trialed with many of their partners. And the synthetic XRP or the XRP2 or whatever you want to call it on that private network that have been trialed with those different counterparties have seen substantially higher prices than what the XRP on the main net on the XRPL has seen. Now, people will say, well, why wouldn't they just use those? They do. They are side chains or private networks that connect to the main net, but you still need interoperability through the main net to be able to settle with counterparties if you're not going to use trust lines. And at scale, the routing through the DEX is probably going to yield you a better result for faster, cheaper payments than even the trust line might. So, payment channels, trust lines, implicit or explicit subnet on the XRPL, all of those things allow for, a significantly higher or more scalable solution than the private siloed networks. And I think at some point, the private ledgers that are used in that capacity by the different counterparties will merge with the mainnet when the price of XRP is high enough to start facilitating trades in those ecosystems. At least that's my thesis on that. I'll say, I won't name who at Ripple. We've been to Swell 3 years in a row. This will be our 4th year in New York. And nobody has said that explicitly to me. However, I ask a lot of good questions. I think they're good questions. They give me more information without the other party having to feel like they are being too forthcoming or saying things they're not supposed to. And I try to respect the privacy and NDAs and other things that other people have. But I still want to have some understanding of things, right? So I'll ask things in a specific way and I get certain answers and then I have to infer things from there. Some of the conversations that I've had at Swell in the past have allowed me to infer what I just explained to you guys. So anyway, we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. Again, I could be way off. These are educated guesses on my side. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. We actually just did that one. We did that one. Sorry, still scrolling back up through the chat here. We're almost an hour. We're a little bit more than an hour and a half in. I'm going to try to grab the rest of these super chats further up in the chat, and then we're going to wrap it up. If I missed your super chat, again, I'm sorry. I don't get everybody. If I miss it, please send it to us in DM on another social media platform, or you can email it to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and they will get it over to me. Just another rector says, any advice for anyone that is in the 0.2 to 0.1% ranking on the XRP rich list and also reaching retirement age 61 now? Is an LLC a good option for someone that just wants to retire? Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. You'll be able to manage the XRP, have anonymity, creditor protection, have it structured, be able to mitigate taxes on the income that you create off of it. You'd retain control over the asset. You'd be the manager. It would be member managed, and it'd be a sole proprietorship, which is what it sounds like you would want to do. If you do have a spouse and you want them involved, you can make them a manager on the organization. They can have access to the accounts at Anchorage. You would probably qualify for that if you are in that type of ranking. And so, if you want access to institutional custody, you don't want to have to think about the keys and the cold wallet and have the risk of an exchange going down and becoming a creditor. We'd love to have the conversation with you about that. Again, there are other people out there that do similar stuff to us. Nobody that's quite like what we do to the standard that we do it, but there are other options out there. But the LLC, again, we could help you do that. You can go to app.digital-ascension-group, just like it's spelled behind me, .com. And if you go to app.digital-ascension-group.com, you can set up the LLC in the app for $1,500. It's streamlined. Your name doesn't appear on the filing. We get you the registered agent, EIN, articles of organization, maintain all your corporate documents for you so that you have the creditor protection, update you on everything, make sure that it's all good to go. So, yeah. Again, not for everybody. I don't know if you have kids. I don't know what your long-term plans are, but just for retirement, that's a fantastic way to structure it. You could also do an IRA. I Trust, and there's a few other parties, including ourselves, that do IRAs. And I think you can contribute in kind into the IRA. If it's a Roth, you can, at 61, you could do $7,500 for this year and last year. So it'd be a total of $1,500 in cash or in kind that you could put in an IRA. With the amount that you have, that might be, a tax advantage way that you could continue to see the growth of the asset and continue to receive distributions tax-free off of it over time. Again, speak with our financial advisors. If you want to work with us, you can go to digitalwealthpartners.net, and they will be able to navigate that and walk you through all the different options that you do have. Onan means family, or Ohan. Ohana means family. I said Ohana. My wife always got to correct me. I love her. She makes sure that I stay in my lane. They say, when the IMF intervenes with the BOJ, Bank of Japan, does the change of from a free floating to managed market cause BOJ to be more transparent and stop artificially suppressing their rates? Yes. Yeah, they're going to have to move. They're going to have to raise their interest rates if the IMF were to come in and invoke, what they need to do for their monetary policy. Ohana is how it means family. They're in Hawaii. And I should know that from Lilo and Stitch. I should have known. We've got Henry. he says, evening, Jake. Hope you're well. I hold a Caribbean community passport. Which of those countries would be the best for structuring? Thank you. A lot of people do stuff out of the Bahamas. The Bahamas is pretty lenient in comparison to Cayman or Bermuda on how things work there, but there's a lot of tax advantages to being in the Bahamas. Cayman is another good jurisdiction, both of those. Panama is a U.S. territory, and that's not really in the Caribbean islands. Yeah, I would look at the Bahamas or Cayman if you have a passport or a community passport there. All right. We did that one. We did that one. We may have gotten through the super chats. No, here we go. GDT 37 XRP or 73 XRP says condolences to the Ondo family on Nathan Allman's passing. Very sad news. Way too young to go. Rest in peace. Let's appreciate these young pioneers, including Jake and Max. Thank you for all that you do for the community. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's sad to see, you know, younger people pass away. You never know what people are dealing with in their personal life, or if they have ailments or other things. You know, on that, I don't know if we should go down this road or not, but you know, life insurance is a piece of that. What we've been doing to be able to help people get stuff kind of in place before price appreciation, if you have beneficiaries and that's a concern, you know, again, as a father and a husband, I feel like those things are probably things I should have in place. And so I've set up a life insurance policy with our subsidiary. Carl von Schwartz is our the head of the insurance division at DAG, and he helped me structure that. It's a term policy. So with that, I was able to get my health panel done now. So if I have something come up later that's a heart issue or cancer or something else, that policy is locked in based on that health panel. I can also get early benefits on it if I, you know, have something happen to me that, you know, keeps me from being able to work or do other things, or I'm incapacitated. And then separate of that, if I want to convert that to a whole life policy or an IUL or something else later on, I have the capability to do that. And it's far cheaper than, you know, setting up a whole life policy where you have significant cash, you know, contributions that you have to make each year. But as your price appreciates on XRP, I think people will have that additional cash at their disposal to convert those policies. So if you are younger or older, or you have beneficiaries or kiddos or other people that depend on you, I can tell you, you know, my dad paid through the nose on an insurance policy for the last 2 years of his life that did pay out for me and my brother, and we were very grateful for that. It did help, you know, with his funeral and a bunch of other things, and it paid out very quickly. So again, because of the life experiences I've had, those are just things that I think about. Most people don't think about that stuff till it's a problem or they have a life event or a health issue. And then they think, oh crap, I should have done that before. So if you want to be proactive, you can go to Xure Legacy, XURE legacy.com. And eventually that'll be DAG Insurance, but today that's where it lives. And you can schedule an appointment with, you know, one of our advisors over there. And again, condolences to the Ondo family and Nathan's family. Be praying for them. Brandon, he says, just learned of the calc from Anthony and Michnik, which grok numbers on liquidity supply and time between transactions per XRP. Numbers easily went to high hundreds, 4 to 5 digits, 1 to 10%, just DTCC 4.7 quadrillion. Robbie knows what he's talking about, my man. He wouldn't be head of digital assets at BlackRock if he didn't. Nitro says, this is to Living Legacy. I wanted to publicly apologize to him for something back in April. I was very inappropriate and disrespectful in DMs. I don't know if he remembers me, but I'm very sorry. Well, thank you. That's not easy to do, to admit, if you made a mistake and apologize for it, especially on a public forum. So thank you for that. And I'm sure he appreciates it. And all we can do is get better. You know what I mean? Like, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's Jesus. So, owning stuff when you mess up and doing what you can to make it right goes a long way. And I appreciate you coming on here and saying those things. And like I said, I'm sure he does too. YDGLEB says, hey, Jake, what is your opinion on Flare and Decent providing yield opportunity? And do you think there will be better XRP yield options in the near future? I think it's great. I'm excited to see Flare collaborating with a bunch of people out there. Again, Flare also doesn't want domestic people here in the US participating in their protocol yet. They are, I've had Hugo on the show. You can watch the podcast that I did with Hugo. Got to catch up with him a little bit at XRP Vegas, and actually got to play golf with one of the guys that works there, which is cool. We've developed a good relationship with them. Big advocate for Flare. I think that they are doing a lot of cool stuff over there. We're still going through DD on all the stuff that they have, the vault infrastructure, and the different providers that they're working with to be able to generate the returns on XRP. Again, there's a lot of people out there calling it yield. There are no structured products for yield for XRP. All of it is returns, but they can, pay within a spread and pay it on a regular cadence out of DeFi, and the way that they have this stuff structured, which is fantastic, by the way. But, again, there are additional risks with that. And so you just want to make sure that you understand how those assets are being put to work, how they're being held, is there insurance, how's it structured. We like Decent. We're an affiliate for them. I think they do a good job, and excited that they are on the forefront of providing different opportunities to generate returns on your XRP inside of your wallet there with them. So again, one of the main reasons we're affiliated. Gene, you didn't have to do so many super chats, man. Thank you for all of that. I'll send you some money back. Again, if you guys want to go subscribe to his podcast and YouTube channel, it is Revenue Playbook Chronicles. Go check it out over there, and you can watch the interview that he and I did not too long ago. Be rad, Mr. Hopkins. He says, in your opinion, what percent of XRP capture? What percent does XRP capture from Swift, DTCC, Fedwire by 2030? You might think I'm crazy, but I'm going to say all the money. Be rad. I think that it is the backbone of the financial system. I think that everything will settle through one unified layer and ledger, and that is the XRPL and XRP. The Garrett Mendoza, he says, do you trust Doppler or anyone for yields? We've sat down with Doppler. I can speak directly and candid about them. They are international. Again, they've geofenced the US. You should not be participating unless you're using a VPN, which again, I'm not going to condone or advocate for, because it does open up them to soliciting to US investors, which could cause them complications for securities offering. So, do whatever you're going to do. You make your own choices. The way that they generate yield is the same way we do. They just, cap the spread and they pay it out on a regular basis because it's DeFi. I like it. I think what they're doing is cool. And they're, utilizing a lot of the same sub-advisors and people that we do in order to be able to curate that return for the investors. But they are pooling assets. I don't know if they're doing it through a vault or not. If they're doing it out of Decent, they may be doing it through a vault infrastructure, which would be similar to the SMA stuff that we're developing. So I'd have to better understand the mechanics behind that. If they are doing it out of an SMA infrastructure, then it wouldn't be, well, you'd still be, you would need some type of agreement in place with them. It can't just be an open source protocol, because they are taking a fee for what they're doing, and they are also deciding how the assets get put to work and with which advisors. So it would still be a securities offering. It would meet the prongs to Howey test. So again, I've sat down with them, know those guys. I think that they're cool, very similar to what we're doing on the fund side. They're just doing it through a DeFi structure. And again, we're all working toward the same long-term goals, right? Like we want this done in a compliant, regulated, insured, structured way, and make sure that it's okay with the regulators here in the US and the way that it's done. And people get access to returns on their XRP. Like that's the end game. So I'm happy that everybody's kind of focused on this now. We were the first people to ever launch a product for XRP. If we were on chain, we would be the largest yield paying product for XRP. We have about, I don't know, even at today's price, probably $300 million dollars worth of XRP in the hedge fund that we manage. So yeah. Bad financial decisions, Nick. Jake, the man, the myth, the legend. What's up, dude? Thank you for the kind words. He says, just saw that Tether is planning on launching a stablecoin. Does that affect anything with XRP? So USAT has been touted for a while. That's going to be US compliant stablecoin. Again, like I mentioned before, stablecoins just exacerbate the need for Nostro Vostro accounts at scale. You need a DEX that allows for settlement that doesn't have counterparty risk like Tether. A lot of the reason that people don't want to use certain stable coins that aren't issued and audited by themselves is they don't trust the other counterparty. And they also don't want to enrich the other counterparty. If you're using somebody else's stable coin, you give them cash, they're buying the treasuries, they're generating the returns off of that. Other institutions are going to want to issue their own stable coin, especially if they can settle through XRP and not have to post collateral with the counterparty bank to be able to do it. So no, it does not affect XRP's long-term outcome. It does affect Tether's long-term outcome though, because I think that they're going to have some issues with USDT. Like, why would you be launching a US compliant stablecoin if you were actually going to get the other stablecoin to be compliant? Just gives me a pause. Church Point is there any truth to Ripple buying Circle today on the low? Got faith in you, Jake. You ain't been wrong yet. God bless. Cheers, Church Point. I appreciate the kind words and you noticing that my batting average is good. I've missed some stuff, and I don't think anybody has all the answers, but I'm doing pretty good. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this, I think that it actually makes a lot of sense now that there's other stablecoin issues in the market. When it was discussed before, the word on the street was that the regulators blocked it because of antitrust laws. But now, I think because now you have, Bank of America coin, you've got JP Morgan, you've got PayPal, you've got a bunch of other stablecoin issuers coming to market. It's no longer really a monopoly if they make that acquisition. And again, that would take them public. They've said that they're not going to IPO, but if they did a reverse merger or an RTO, that gives them a lot of power and a lot of leverage in what their share prices are going to start trading at when they go public. And they hired John Bilch a couple years ago. He's their CFO, and he's taken a couple other companies public. So he has the expertise to be able to structure the books and do things the right way in order to prepare them for that. And then separately, recently, they transferred all of their preferred shares to common stock. You would do that, like that happens anyway when corporations go public. So if they were planning on doing this, you would have to do that before you made this acquisition and took the company public through a reverse merger. So it's just little things like that that make me think that this is more plausible and actually a likely outcome. And for that to be leaked today, I don't know what the purchase price is going to be. I don't know how much cash they're going to have to put up. If there's going to be an equity swap, I'm sure that there is, because Circle again is worth $28.12 billion. Ripple on their last tender offer was worth $50 billion. $300 per share was their last tender offer. And for them to be buying back as many shares as they have, it's helped them structure these acquisitions that they've made. So this would be like, out of all the different ways that Ripple could go public, this one gives them the most leverage. And I really like this outcome if that's the case. So I'm advocating for it. I'm going to say that I'm leaning more toward it's legit than it's not legit. I think that I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's legit. we'll see. Again, I'm not perfect. I've missed other stuff, but if I had to call it and like give you a call one way or the other, I think that they are going to make the acquisition of Circle, and it'll be a reverse merger, and that's how Ripple will go public. We've already done these. I think I got through. I'm going to. Oh, we got one more here, and then I'm going to go to the bottom. DaVinci Ripple, Davich Ripple says, you said they can't kick the can much further. Who's kicking the can? Lionel Messi. Messi could kick that can a long way. Look, so I think people think in different time frames, and my short duration time frame is a few years. I try to sit in a position where I think over multiple decades, and so when I say short term, that's kind of the period that I'm talking about most of the time is a 2-year time frame. If it's less than that, I'll give you guys, actual time frames, which I've been told not to do by my legal counsel at this point. So probably won't be doing that specifically. I will say that I am watching May, June, July very closely. There's a lot of things there's a lot of things happening in these 3 months with Japan, and the stablecoin issuance and accepting those for counterparty transactions and international remittance, and providing, basically accepting that as legal tender. You got the tokenization of the stock market in July, which has now been, there's hearsay that that's been pushed out, but I haven't seen anything formal from the SEC saying it has been. You need, distributed ledger technology. The first place that that's going to be implemented, according to the president of NASDAQ, in her commentary with Monica Long last year at Swell, was on the back end of the stock market before they tokenize equities or ETFs. So in my mind, if they're going to start trialing that or implementing it in July, you would need that in place first. You would need T+0. So that means 2 months. Next 2 months, well, really 1 month, we should see some implementation for that. And the only way that that's actually going to work is XRP's got to be a substantially higher price. So again, these are just my opinions and educated guesses on things. Take it for, what you will. Don't make any financial decisions predicated on the information provided here. It's always for entertainment, educational purposes. But, I like to give you guys the real deal. I don't try to beat around the bush on stuff. How's it going, big dog? What's up, Sam? He says 3 a.m. shift here again. If the Clarity Act doesn't pass till 2027, when are you thinking the DTCC will give regulation for crypto so Japan will decide the reverse carry trade? Thanks again. Japan is going live with their stablecoin stuff on June 1, so it wouldn't surprise me to see the OCC come out this week and give guidance on stablecoins here domestically in the U.S. for the banks. They can do it anytime before July 18th. Their comment period ended May 1st. So if you wanted, the actual time frame is any point from now until July 18th, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of coordinate that with Japan. Fresco, they say currently at 4,000 plus XRP, on the road to reaching 50,000 to be able to come in as a client, work with you and Digital Ascension Group. Hopefully price stays where it is at for a while to reach my goal before 2030. I'm happy either way, Fresco. I'm just glad that you're here and you see what's going on, and you're taking action towards something that you believe in. Hopefully, again, you spoke with a financial advisor before making those choices. Candidly, I don't think you have that long, my man. I'm not saying that to be disheartening, but we've been here for a long time. Some of us 7, 8, 9 years waiting on this to actually be implemented. And 2026 is the year that we're going to see institutional adoption at scale for XRP. And that means a significantly higher price for XRP in order to be able to actually fulfill on what Monica Long said earlier this year. So again, not saying that to fearmonger or pressure you or do anything in that category. I'm just saying, what I believe to be the case. And we will still love to work with you in the future. I'm sure that you're the price appreciation will push you to the point in the not too distant future where we would for sure be able to take you on as a client. Wise marketing for DAG. How are IT systems, security systems, and policies, i.e., lockdown point management, extremely important with remote workforce? We're very good with that. I'm not going to disclose all the different stuff that we've done to be able to pass a SOC audit because I don't want to expose any vulnerabilities across the organization that I don't think exist, but that sounds like a leading question for somebody to hear something and then try to attack us. So I'm just not even going to entertain it. Officially, never in wrong, never in doubt. Occasionally wrong, never in doubt. Says, hey Jake, Beyond Brook Mastermind Plus for yield products. Can explain why some entity would pay XRP holders yield on an annual basis? What will they do with the XRP, and won't they need to come after price appreciation when XRP is at a high and stable price? I think that may be the case. You know, there's been some delays for us that I've wondered why things were delayed with different counterparties, and I felt like maybe price appreciation could be the holdup for that. That's not what's been told to us in any capacity. Just that makes the most sense for how some of the things have occurred. But all that being said, this is going to be a premium asset that people are going to want on their balance sheet to be able to use as collateral for derivatives and other applications. And so, you know, just like they'd be willing to pay you for treasuries as a bond, if you're posting this collateral with different counterparties for them to use it, they're going to be making way more money than whatever they're paying you. And for them to pay you in XRP, they're going to have a pool of XRP that they're buying that in order to be able to pass back those returns. The escrow could help facilitate that for Ripple and the different counterparties that might end up with the escrow to be able to aggregate more XRP for them to be able to use. They might be willing to pay some returns to those that are posting it in XRP. But yeah, I do think that we're going to have to see some upside. Yes.
Don't miss Rooster. That's the last
Cool.
one.
I told him not to post the super chat. He can send it in.
No, and Mike sent it to you in the.
Okay.
And if anybody misses super chat.
Well, I told him that, and that's why you're running in here to tell me who I should answer and who I shouldn't. We've got Flynn. He says, thank you for teaching wealth accumulation and preservation. Oh, we already did that one. Okay. Actually, I think I made it through all of the super chats before this one, so I can go down here and get Rooster. So I'm getting there. She just don't give me time to get there, you know? Big Mike, he says, hey, Jake, love you. I'm really hoping for XRP appreciation this year, at least 1,000%. How hopeful are you in that happening, and how likely is the DTCC to accept XRP as their main asset to tokenize all? I don't think that they're going to use XRP to tokenize all. You've already seen NASDAQ and a few other exchanges partnering with different counterparties to be able to tokenize inside of their framework and on their infrastructure. Now, back-end settlement is a different instance, and like I just mentioned before, I'm extremely confident that that's going to happen here in 2026 and as a precursor to the actual tokenization of the stock market using these other networks. So, yeah. All right. We already did this one for Fresco. He says, Wayne Little, or Wayne Whitty, says, what are the fees to custody crypto through Anchorage, and will those go down if there's huge price appreciation? It seems a little steep at the moment. They do. They go down over time. So the way that we've structured it is it's 2% for anything less than 5 million. I think we still currently have a special going on for anything that's 1.1 million or more. It's 40 basis points currently. So if you bring over 1.1 million in XRP or Bitcoin, it drops to 40 bips. Traditionally, again, it's 2% for anything less than 5 million. At 5 million, it drops to 50 basis points or half of 1%. over 10 million, it drops to 40 basis points or 40% of 1%. And if you got, over 100 million or $1 billion with us, yeah, we would love to bring that down even further for you. We will have to, right? Because at that point, you could negotiate significantly lower rates. But for us, we get an aggregator type deal. And so our rates come down, the more AUM that we have as an aggregate total, we're able to pass those savings on to our client base. So the answer is yes, they will definitely come down post price appreciation. All right, well, we'll do Rooster here because I've got it over here. Appreciate Living Legacy. He says, hope you're having a blessed night, Carbon 2 member, and I have Joe as my advisor at DAG. Great guy. I just realized you are the CEO of Syndicately. I had a call with them the other week. Is there a way to get a hold of someone heading tokenization? Would love to chat. You can email the team over there at info@syndicately.com and they will connect you with me because I'm the head of tokenization for Syndicately. So for those that don't know, Syndicately is an end-to-end fund administration platform for SPVs or special purpose vehicles. We use that to run the private deals that we do there in the community for the Beyond Broke Mastermind. And other people use it also if you're either raising a safe round or you're raising private equity to invest or raising a round to be able to invest in other private equity. You want to structure an SPV. The platform does all the back-end compliance and admin so that you don't have to think about that and you can focus on raising capital. We want to then, be able to, we have an addendum on the PPM and subscription agreement that allows for tokenization of the SPVs that are created on that platform. And we're talking to multiple people to be able to tokenize those and create a secondary marketplace for liquidity for people that are working on that stuff, which I know that's a mouthful. I don't normally come on here and talk about that stuff. It's a separate project. But I think that it's going to be a big deal for us as things scale and the infrastructure is built out and more assets are tokenized. We want to be able to curate different solutions in the market that are exclusive to DWP clients, and those SPVs are one way that we're going to be able to do that. KT Baby, I don't know if she's going to clap back at Mr. Johnson, but she says, so many prayers for Nathan and his family. May he rest in peace with our Lord. Rick Johnson, what is Jurassic Park? Shout out to the mastermind. Love you. She doesn't even understand your clap back, Rick. She doesn't know what Jurassic Park is, apparently. Willie Plank again says, price appreciation $10 and up. What's the minimum to work with DAG? We're going to have to be fair across the board. I can't afford people in the mastermind specific lower point on that. So for me, we always want to take care of people that take care of us. Those are two separate entities. The mastermind is completely separate of Digital Ascension Group. Oftentimes, because I do own both, there's ways that we can kind of create promo codes and do different things as a marketing or affiliate partner. So maybe there's a way to orchestrate that. I got to get with my compliance team and really sort through that. It really just depends on what price it goes to. Like I mentioned before, I think we could onboard another 10,000 people. And we have the staff to be able to do that and systems to be able to do that in place, or could scale them up quickly. Beyond that, it would be difficult, just being candid. Again, our roadmap is 50 to 100,000 clients over the next 2 years. Wonderful problem to have, right? Champagne problems. But at the same time, we don't want to reduce our level of service to the people that do want to work with us. And that would be difficult, even with 10,000 people coming on, to provide the level of service that we know that we're capable of and want to create as the standard. So it would probably be first come, first serve. And it'll likely be 10 million or more if I'm being realistic about it. Because if XRP goes to $1,000 and you got, 10,000 XRP, that'll be $10 million. that'll probably be the lower bound of what we're going to be able to just handle. Just again, I'm just being honest with you. I wish, we've had to walk a line of expanding resources and capabilities and scaling infrastructure prior to price appreciation to make sure that we can accommodate the level of clients that we currently have and work with them continually as they scale. We currently have about 4,000 clients at Digital Ascension Group on the wealth management side, and about 8,000 clients, well, probably 9,000 clients on the estate planning side. So another 10,000 clients would put us close to 20,000 people that we would be working with. And that would probably be the bandwidth. It would be really tight on the bandwidth for what we currently have. So that'd be my best guess or educated guess on the lower bound for what we would be able to do. Again, we'll still have the DAG app. We're going to build, continuity between the wealth management platform and the private client platform and the DAG app over the next 3 to 6 months. And so many people, I'm sure, will use that application. You may have a robo-advisor, access to the other yield products and things that we have there. Those are all things that we're working on. So again, we want to provide people as much value as we can and meet you where you're at, depending on any amount of XRP that you have. But there's steps in that process. And so again, biting off more than we can chew tends to bite me in the butt when I do it. So I'm trying to get better about that just as a business owner. So it may be higher than that. Again, it all just depends on where the price goes in a very short period of time on what we're going to be able to handle in the capacity that we have. And we will scale as fast as we can, but there's still going to be limitations around that. We are past time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday night. Happy Memorial Day to come hang out with me. Please like, subscribe, share, hype it up if you can over there on YouTube. Appreciate you guys on X, Facebook, and over here on TikTok. If you do want to work with us on the LLC and estate planning, all that fun stuff, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io, and all of the products and solutions are there. If you want the LLC and a bank account and trading through Uphold in our application, go to app.digitalascensiongroup.com. If you want to partner on the wealth management side, we would love to talk to you about what we have over there. You go to digitalwealthpartners.net. And if you want to check out the mastermind and see if the community is for you, we have more in real life events than any other community in crypto, except maybe Crypto Mondays. Shout out to Lou. And then lots of other stuff there. Financial education. We're building course material for everybody in Carbon 1 or higher. Lots of awesome things going on, private deals, and much, much more over there in the mastermind. If you want to check it out, you can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2. Appreciate y'all. Hopefully you have a wonderful week. We will see you guys back on Wednesday for the next one.